simplifying communication. Now, this is important. A lot of people struggle with communication. That is the greatest divide, in my opinion, and that, I'm stating that because I used to do divorces. And, even if two people who use a different process to, come to a conclusion, some are emotional and some are emotionally driven and some are logically driven. And it's difficult when you have one of each and they're trying to, come up with a solution or an answer to something or something like that, because the thought process is completely different. And it causes problems because the logic driven one can't understand why the other person's not using logic, and vice versa. And I'm going to say this, I'm going to go on a limb and say this, it is typical, and I mean typical, that doesn't mean it fits everybody. It's typically, women are typically emotionally driven and men are typically logic driven. Some of us don't fit into that mold. So this is, something that you have to understand about yourself. And once you're able to understand if you are logically driven or emotionally driven, that makes it a lot easier to kind of bridge the gap. If you want to bridge the gap, and it's advisable to bridge the gap, because I'm going to tell you a secret. And I learned this through doing, years of legal negotiations between two people. And sometimes I did corporate negotiation. And I'll tell you, ultimately, most of the time, all the people or both the people want the same thing. It's just the journey to get to that conclusion is what makes it difficult. And that's where the communication breaks down. Because one has one way to process the information and the other person has another way. And they don't like each other's ways, so they tend to get off the rails before reaching the end result. And that's what makes it so difficult. But if you know this, and you know that, like, if your partner, is logically driven, allow them to use that process. That's the process that they need to get to a conclusion. And if they're emotionally driven, allow them to process that way. And it's all about accepting. And even if you're not, in a romantic relationship, you're just, trying to figure something out with somebody, and they don't use the same way to process information, it's going to probably communication will break down before you even get to an end result, because you'll both get so frustrated with each other. And it is so frustrating, it is. I'm super logically driven. I am. I'm all about logic. I love logic because it makes sense to me. But I am deeply emotional. So it's kind of like I'm an INTJ personality type. So I kind of I'll say I got screwed, but women are not supposed to be logically driven. But some of us are. And it's like, I can understand the whole emotional thing, but also I was a legal professional for a long time, and I used to coach people on going to court, and they would, they always wanted to tell me about how they feel, and I'd stop them. I'm like, look, if you're speaking to a judge, the judge does not care about your emotions and how you feel. Go to a therapist, not a judge. If you're speaking in front of a judge, you have to speak facts, which is logic. So it's, I used to preach this all the time to people, and don't take your emotions into court with you. Just don't, ever, because you'll get yelled at by the judge. Maybe not yelled at, but anyway, it's important to recognize, because I don't think that I'm logically driven, so I think I'm all about logic, but I don't think that there's always a right or wrong. It's the journey to get there. It's the path. And if you can't agree on the path and you're going to argue about the path, there's no way you're going to make it to the end result. So keep that in mind, and, listen. If the person wants to talk about their, emotions, listen. You might learn something, and vice versa. And, I know because I'm super logical, and sometimes, I'm not heard because the person I'm speaking to is not logically driven. So that, it's like, really? But it's difficult. But the greatest distance between two people is communication or lack thereof. And if you are going to, be with somebody, and like I said, most men are logically driven, most women are emotionally driven. Not always, but that's how it normally is. And so if you're going to have a relationship with somebody, chances are good they don't process the same way as you do. And that's not a bad thing. Because, some things need emotional input and logic input, but not everything does. But at the end of the day, most people always want the same thing or pretty close to it. And that's what I learned through negotiating. I was like, okay, wait, we took a whole, back road and a long way to get to agreement when you already wanted the same thing. That's not logical to me, but that's what happens because the communication and the process is what people break down over. So make sure you listen and pay attention and know yourself. And if you are emotionally driven, that's who you are, and that's what you are, and that's how your brain is going to process things, and that's how you're going to process things. Understand that and accept it. A lot of it is about acceptance, but don't get angry with somebody because they don't have the same process as you, because that's what breaks down the communication. So I hope this helps. Good luck.